Yeah, but it was interesting too, sitting with folks, and clearly the grants, there's money, but it's limited in terms of actually being able to equip, say, a young up-and-coming pastor to actually go out and serve one of those. It's a very complicated, partial funding kind of system, and so there's work to be done on, I think, on getting that, sort of as workable as it can possibly be. New name for GAMC. Change the name of the elected General Assembly Mission Council to Presbyterian Mission Agency Board and staff to Presbyterian Mission Agency. Change in nomenclature is always very exciting. The trust clause remains. Decline to eliminate the language around held in trust, nevertheless, for the use and benefit of the denomination. Not that that impacts any particular churches or presbyteries we know, but just so you know, that wasn't changed. Board of Pensions considered sharing its benefits program, and I served on the committee that discussed this, and there was vibrant discussion. Should we even have a conversation with Evangelical Covenant Order of Presbyterians, a new denomination was just formed this last year, or other kinds of Presbyterian church expressions, and that there was some contention around it, but elected to at least have that conversation. Ordination standards. No major change along those lines other than stating that each candidate's manner of life should include repentance of sin and diligent use of the means of grace. Some query as to exactly what the use of the means of grace meant, but so I don't have a clear answer to you, as it was clearly somewhat uncertain, but we voted on it anyway. I endorsed the DREAM Act, Development, Relief, and Education for Alien Minors, and renewed the church's advocacy for and work with immigrants. There was a whole committee devoted to immigrant issues, and as one who brought a commissioner's resolution on immigration that eventually was accepted, it was really exciting. And I sat in on that committee a little bit. It wasn't my committee, but sat in to see our denomination's deep commitment to standing with our immigrant sisters and brothers, and at least our public statements. So some great resources there. Presbytery obligatory per capita. Directed the Committee on Office of General Assembly to study the presbytery's ability to pay obligatory per capita funds. As you may know, there's right now a responsibility from presbyteries to pay, but there's complications around churches, necessarily some ways churches can get out of actually paying presbyteries. So this was to study that. Is that correct?
Yeah, churches are not obligated to pay per capita.
Okay. But presbyteries are obligated to pay it to General Assembly, and that creates, as you can imagine, some challenges for presbyteries around the country. Confessions, so send a new translation of the Heidelberg Confession to presbyteries for adoption, and recommended that the 2014 consider adopting the Belhar. So the Belhar is clearly not dead. That issue will emerges again. Women in Church declined to allocate $137,000 to do a study of women's status in the church. The big debate around that, as I heard it, was, is there really a clear sense of exactly how this study would be useful for the church, and is it worth the $137,000? I didn't hear a lack of necessarily commitment to women's issues. That was my own reading. Other thoughts on that?
I think coupled with that, I was in there for part of that conversation in the committee, and part of it is that we have recent studies, and how much has changed between that study. So if we don't have an end goal about what it would be used for and where it would take us to, that was the pause. Another study.
Other thoughts, questions at this point? All right. Social, economic, and environmental justice. Issued statements on racism, incarceration, economic reconstruction, the housing and mortgage crisis, the EPA, workers' rights, and income equality, corporal punishment of children. I will say that for someone who directs this Presbytery's Peace and Justice Task Force, it was overwhelming and really exciting and heartwarming to see the degree to which the larger denomination has embraced a commitment, at least in terms of our resolutions, to social justice. That we aren't just concerned with the private state of individual souls, but of the larger world in which we occupy. And that commitment to the sovereignty of God was really powerful, and I found quite moving. Thoughts or comments on that? All right, then that's the slideshow. Why don't I show, I'm going to show an abbreviated version of these demographics. because this was also presented during GA, and this also gives you some background for the emphasis on 1,001 worshiping communities and those kind of initiatives. But I also found it quite eye-opening. This was shared with all of GA, and this is also available, by the way, on the PCUSA website. So you can download this in its full form if it is of interest. Okay, so this is a snapshot of Presbyterians, Board of Pensions and GA Mission Council. How many Presbyterians are there? So you'll note, first of all, we've got a little under 2 million right now, and had 2.5 million back in 1997. So those are, I think, known to many people, but just to know that there is this sort of continued state of numerical decline from 97 through 2011. And you'll note fairly even. How old are Presbyterians? Okay. We would think if you broke Presbyterians up into various age categories and divided those evenly, this is what the age of PCUSA worshipers would look like, right? If we broke it evenly. But believe it or not, our age separation doesn't exactly look like that. Now, if you broke us down in terms of U.S. population age groups, this is what we'd look like, where the vast majority are in that 45 to 54, but then we've got a lot of young people. This is what it looked like. Is this what the PCUSA demographics look like? My Lord, no. Instead, we look like this. And this is very interesting, isn't it? That we are really concentrated in the 55 to 69, and then a high number of even those above. That's the age group. And look at that compared to the U.S. population, and see particularly in the upper end where that difference is so dramatic. So that's certainly a challenging call to the church. Questions about that? You can see that visual.
Is that also a website?
That is. This whole PowerPoint I'm showing you right now, you can not only download from the PCUSA website, look up demographics from General Assembly, but there's even notes at the bottom that have essentially the script that folks use. I'm doing an abbreviated version of that, but you can, it's got all of that there. That's where I got it. Age of GA advisory delegates, and I will say it was exciting to see the presence of youth and the prominent presence and the experience that young people have. Talking to those both on committees who were high school or college age, this was a formative experience for them. And their voice and presence in the larger church, both for them and for us, was wonderful. So I would say that's something it seems like GA is really doing well. But look at this in terms of the age of GA commissioners. That this is those who were actually there representing the church, 65 and above was by far almost 35% of folks who were making the decisions. That I found really striking. And look at those under 45 make up altogether probably 10 to 15%.
It was 7%.
7%. Those under 40, right?
Under 45. That's what I was hearing in the Twitterverse. Maybe not.
Okay. Interesting. So the median age is 60 of commissioners. Then they did a brief piece of median age of Presbyterians 2001 to 2008. Our worshipers, average age is 61. Pastoral leaders, 56. And then if you compare, and that's actually going up, you'll see, from 2001 to 2008. And then U.S. population, it turns out I'm right in the middle, friends.
Way to go, man.
So, I'm average. Like lukewarm water, right there. So PCUSA demographics. What are other demographics? Interesting, the members are weighted towards women. Teaching elders weighted strongly towards men still. GA commissioners closer to even, and similar with advisory delegates. And U.S. population pretty even. Race ethnicity of Presbyterians. I thought this was interesting, that predominantly, in terms of members and ruling elders, we are still almost 95% white. When in the larger U.S. population, it's only now, what we would say, 2/3 of the population, roughly, a little more, is white. Marital status, this was an interesting one too, that of Presbyterians, we are members, 3/4 of us are married, and ruling elders, 4/5 of us are married. I guess of ruling elders and then teaching elders, it's 85% are married. And if you compare that to the U.S. population, only half of folks are married, which creates very interesting challenges for and questions of how the church is addressing the needs of singles and how welcoming we can be as communities to singles. Comments, questions? All right. Members and non-members in Presbyterian pews, this was interesting too, in that we are increasingly, like those that are actually in the pews, 81% are actual members, 10% are no but regularly participate. And then if you look at those, though, who are, in terms of membership, it's, again, far weighted to older. A lot of younger folks are not members but regularly participate, 20% roughly, which is a growing trend. And certainly I'm seeing that at Knox, where a growing number of folks are now a regular part of things but aren't members. And it creates interesting challenges, opportunities too, I guess, for the church. Then, so those were the two ones to note, the 19 and 13%. And then there's other demographics around the benefits plan. You can guess how this impacts the benefits, because teaching elders in the benefits plan, we're pretty high up towards those who are soon going to collect benefits. So that creates some challenges for the Presbyterian pension plan. And they noted how this has changed since 1995. If you look at the weighting of folks in that plan, you see a trend? Mm-hmm. And this is 2010 right now. So, and then teaching elders and lay employees in the benefits plan. I want to make sure we have enough time for both conversation and for David and others who might want to speak. So do know that this information is available on the website. Any questions about demographics before we go to the next?
I have one question.
Yes.
Going back to that slide about tracking Presbyterians versus the general population and how our dispersion is different. Were there any charts or any information about how our percentages of churchgoers in those age groups corresponds to all churchgoers in the population?
Pew Research has a lot of that stuff. You can go to their website.
Okay. Do you have any quick glimpse as to how that compares?
Very similar.
Very similar. And that goes across Methodist, sort of non-denom, Baptist, the whole thing. Very interesting. All right. Then first of all, David, since you haven't gotten a chance to speak, anything you'd like to share?
Not much. The main thing is I'm a first. This is the first time I went to General Assembly, and so it was. I think one of the things that stood out to me was it was a contrast, because I have served interim churches in Pennsylvania for a number of years, a number of churches, and it seemed to me that in those churches there's a lot of suspicion of General Assembly. These people in the offices who really don't represent us. So as a new there, it was most interesting and heartening to me to see that what's obvious to any of the rest of you who know General Assembly, that they're made up of people like us, people that are bright and passionate and quite enthusiastic and energized, trying to find ways to serve local churches, help the churches revitalize and grow. So that was one observation. And the other observation maybe I'll mention is that the committee that I sat on was probably the least exciting of the committees, but it was a committee to review committees. So I bet y'all wish you could have been there for that. But one of the committees was I guess you'd say GACOR, G-A-C-O-R. I found out that General Assembly is a acronym heaven, and you have to be able to pick up these all these letters and what they mean. But this committee on representation, the General Assembly Committee on Representation, boring name, but interesting, passionate people about making sure that that all the voices are heard, all minority voices, that we pay attention to how that may be done. And some of those people pointed out interesting things in this business of trying to include those that are not included, and how just letting what comes, not taking direct action, not stepping out, you know all this, unless we take initiative, we have segregation by default. The statistics there said 94% of the population is white, and so Stanley Baskor, one of the people on this committee, said, who is an African American in New York City, said, "If I don't know you, how can I love you?" And I thought that was a comment that stuck with me. Anyway, that's a little bit of what I saw.
And I'll share a little bit more in here, but I did serve on the pensions and foundation. And I'll just share, as a person newer to those institutions, they're fabulous. You know, Presbyterian Pensions and Presbyterian Foundation and their representatives, I came away from both that and then meeting a number of the GA staff people and thought, we've got great people and these great institutions. So I'll share that.
On that line, Matt, was the status of the order for the weekend?
Did we send on the, I think, thumbs up, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
I know that, what that means.
The recommended by committee went through plenary on the consent agenda from that committee. So what it means is that we have, it has now been approved to have the Board of Pensions look at the possibility of implementing a partial disability plan as part of the disability benefit.
And in committee, it wasn't contentious. People thought that's great. All right, other questions at this point?
How many commissioners did the Presbytery have?
We had, we had, hey, Peter's
Four
here too.
commissioners and one young adult advisory delegate.
So 4 commissioners, 1 youth advisory delegate.
2 teaching elders and 2 ruling elders?
Yes.
Yes.
Other questions or folks have? I realize we've got another of our commissioners just arrived. Thank you, Peter. And so, Peter, we just want to give you a chance. I know we're going to get to hear from you in the when we gather too. But any thoughts you'd like to share about the GA and that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, basically, it was my first experience, and it was more than I can handle, obviously. And because many of the meetings that I attended last year until like 10, 11, sometimes like way after midnight. So it was very, energy consuming, but otherwise it was a very good experience.
And Peter, by the way, served on the marriage committee, and so he had the hardest, I would say, the hardest job of any of us. Is that fair, Peter?
Yes, I think.
We'd be going home at like 7 o'clock. Oh, we're all done, and he's like, he's coming back the next day. They've been up till 2 or 3 a.m. and people been in tears, and it's just very different experience. All right. Yes.
I just have a comment. I want to let you know about an interesting conversation that's been happening after GA. I mean, we saw the statistics. We saw how few young people were voting commissioners. How many of you are familiar with Twitter, even if you just know a little bit about Twitter? Great. It's one of the main ways to do social media. So with Twitter, you can create like a topic that allows for conversation. It's called a hashtag. It's got like a number sign, the pound sign, and then a given word. Well, one thing that happened after this was that a lot of people, including a lot of young people, not exclusively young, started a conversation called Dream PC USA. So number sign, pound sign, hashtag Dream PC USA. You don't even have to be on Twitter to look at this conversation. And I want to let you know that many mainline churches now have these hashtags. There's Dream UMC, Dream UCC. They're all in conversation together, and it's pretty amazing. So people will post. There's a Dream PCUSA blog now. You can kind of see how people are thinking about innovative ways to do ministry, good questions. And every Saturday night, this group gets on this hashtag and has a prayer meeting all across the country. So I'm trying to think I think it's 5 p.m. tonight. I think it's 8 Eastern Standard. So just check it out.
And that's Dream
PCUSA.
PCUSA.
So you have to do like the little number sign. Just Google that. Yeah, you don't even have to be on Twitter. So.
All right.
Along those lines, the other one that launched right at the beginning of GA is another group called Stay PCUSA. Again, Twitter, Facebook, they're all over the social media. And I met a number of those people, and it is generally the younger demographic than what was up on your charts there.
Oh no, Saturdays.
All right. Well, I know that we 8:45. Is this the time we're set to close? I can show one last video if folks want to see it. Otherwise, we can disperse. One more. All right. Let me show one. This is Theme On, and then there's a few others I'll get to show in.
Hội thánh Tin Lành Trường Nhịp Thiên Ân bắt đầu với khải tượng của Hội Giáo hạt New Covenant khi họ thấy khoảng chừng 50.000 người Việt Nam di dân đến Mỹ với nhiều sự khó khăn và cô đơn. Mặc dù vậy, những người này sẵn sàng để nghe tin lành của Chúa Cứu Thế Giêsu. Họ đã mời tôi giống như là một người mở mang hội thánh mới cùng khải tượng với họ, và chúng tôi đã bắt đầu hội thánh Thiên Ân với sự hỗ trợ đầy đủ của giáo phận, giáo hạt và tổng hội.
I very love my church because I have helped me a lot in my life when I lived in United States.
Most of the people that come to our church come from broken homes. And so what they're lacking is just a sense of belonging and just the love that people have for them. And I think that we show that here.
Chúng tôi đi ra